Dear friends, welcome to the 40th episode of When I Cannot Pray prayer series. In the previous section, I tried to explain how memory can be trained to focus, concentrate, and eventually achieve the goal in our life. The same attitude during prayer also can help us achieve the goal of spiritual pursuit. For prayer, we need to train the memory through hope. The central object of hope is dispossession. The less other objects are possessed, the more capacity and ability to hope in God, who is beyond the capacity of our memory. The greater the possession of natural and even supernatural or any other form of image, lesser the capacity and ability for the memory to hope in God. Accordingly, in the measure we dispossess the memory of forms and distractions and objects which are not God, we will preserve it empty and expect God to fill it. That's what happens in prayer. When we try to empty our memory, God fills it. As often as distinct ideas, forms, and images occur in us during prayer, they should immediately be turned to God with loving affection and awareness in emptiness of everything. We should not continue to think or look on these things expecting consolation or sentimental fulfillment. This I have told also in the previous episode. We should consider these ideas and forms without getting attached to them or seeking gratification from them, lest the effect of them be left in our spirit. We need to live in hope in training our memory. Then a question comes, what is really hope? In his encyclical letter, Spe Salvi, of the Supreme Pontiff Benedict XVI, he wrote it to the bishops, priests, and deacons, men and women religious, and all the lay faithful on Christian hope. I would like to highlight a few important things here, what the Pope said, basing his doctrine encyclical on the biblical faith. Hope, in fact, is a key word in biblical faith, so much so that in several passages, the words faith and hope seem interchangeable. Thus, the letter to the Hebrews closely links the fullness of faith, that is chapter 10, verse 22, to the confession of our hope without wavering, chapter 10, verse 23. Likewise, when the first letter of Peter exhorts Christians to be always ready to give an answer concerning the Logos, the meaning and the reason of their hope is equivalent to faith. We see how decisively the self-understanding of the early Christians was shaped by their having received the gift of trustworthy hope. When we compare the Christian life with life prior to faith or with the situation of the followers of other religions, Paul reminds the Ephesians that before their encounter with Christ, they were without hope and without God in the world. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12. Of course, he knew they had gods, he knew they had a religion, but their gods had proved questionable, and no hope emerged from their contradictory myths. Notwithstanding their gods, they were practically without God, and consequently found themselves in a dark world facing a dark future. This leads us in this phrase, we see in no certain terms the point Paul was making. In the same vein, he says to the Thessalonians, you must not grieve as others do who have no faith. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. Here too we see as a distinguishing mark of Christians the fact that they have a future. It is not that they know the details of what awaits them, but they know in general terms that their life will not end in emptiness. Only when the future is certain as a positive reality does it become possible to live the present as well. So now we can say Christianity was not only good news, the communication of an unknown content. In our language, we would say the Christian message was not only informative but performative. That means the gospel is not merely a communication of things that can be known, it is one that makes things happen and is life-changing. The dark door of time of the future has been thrown open. The one who has hope lives differently. The one who hopes has been granted the gift of a new life. So this encyclical was given on November 30th, 2007 by Pope Benedict XVI. Dear friends, when we train our memory in the virtue of hope, it gives us tremendous courage to go forward. We should take care, according to St. John of the Cross, not to store up actively in the memory the objects of the five senses like hearing, sight, smell, taste, or touch, which are not in any way for the glory of God. Of course, St. Paul in his letter to the Corinthians, first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 31 says, whatever you do, eat or drink, do it for the glory of God. Therefore, the memory should be left free and disencumbered and unattached to any earthly or heavenly consideration. Just imagine heavenly. St. John of the Cross says that we should not be attached to even certain imaginations we might have about heaven and other things. However, there is no delusion or danger in the remembrance, veneration of esteemed images that the Church proposes us in a natural manner, since in these images nothing else is esteemed than the person represented. The memory of these images will not fail to benefit a person because this remembrance is accompanied with love for whoever is represented. Images will always help us towards prayer, provided that no more attention is paid to them than necessary for His love. Sometimes we get too attached to a statue or a place or a church or an image. St. John of the Cross says even that must be purified. When progressively we keep the functioning of the memory only for God, it becomes more and more spiritual. In the measure we, through our own efforts, enter into the emptiness of forms, we will receive from God the possession of union. God effects this union in us passively. That's why the silence is very important. Thus, God will give us the habit of the perfect divine union when He is pleased to do so and in accordance with our preparation. Dear friends, what I said in this particular talk is this, that according to St. John of the Cross and even the spiritual writers, that even the holy images must be purified and emptied from our memory when we come for prayer. So just imagine, as I have been telling, that prayer is not recitation of prayer or saying things. When Jesus says in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 7, verse 21, by saying, Lord, Lord, you will not enter into God's kingdom. Very true. Jesus' words are so powerful. Just vocal prayers cannot be considered real prayer. The second one, when we come for prayer in that silence, we might have all kinds of images. Now, for example, image of Jesus Christ, image of the crucifix, image of the Blessed Virgin Mary, or angels and saints might come in our mind. St. John of the Cross says, even those must be emptied because they do not have any similarity with the God whom we are talking to. So when we empty those with the virtue of hope, then real prayer happens. Real prayer is communicating to our loving God who does not have a form, who is beyond space and time. He cannot be restricted and confined to any kind of image. Even the image of the holy saints, even for that matter, the image of Jesus can help us, because Jesus himself very clearly said, one who sees me has seen the Father. Certainly good. But that image which you are having in your mind of a statue or a picture need not be the real image of Jesus. Somebody has drawn it. Somebody has formed it. That is what St. John of the Cross says, that even that must be purified. We have to enter into the deepest silent center where we encounter the real God. St. John of the Cross, we would come to that later. St. John of the Cross says the real union with God in prayer happens when the Spirit touches the Spirit. There is the Spirit to Spirit contact. That means God is Spirit and our soul, spirit touches, and then the union sparks. And there is the energizing point, energizing center, energizing power that gives us real strength to live our life, to go ahead with our adventure of encountering and getting united with our loving God. Let us give a try to really pray. God bless you.